Okay, this short video is on making your first quiz or what the quiz settings are that you have available to you. I'm going to work through all of the quiz settings. You may not need them all for most of your quizzes, but it's important that you understand what those settings are that are available to you. So let's go and make our first Moodle quiz inside the Moodle demo course. Okay, here we are inside the Moodle demo course. I'm going to turn editing on and I'm going to add an activity or resource. Now, if you haven't used this before, the new Moodle 3.9 comes up as icons and it shows all the activities that I have available to me because I am using an account that is a level 1 teacher. So I don't have all of them and I may want to highlight the ones that I like. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight the ones that I know that I'm going to use in the course. And now those are the only ones that are in my starred category. I'm going to go ahead and add a quiz. And this is the basic quiz setup. You can see by default all these lower things are not expanded and we're going to work through all of them. So in the name, it's got an asterisk. I have to give it a name. Chapter 1 preview quiz. Maybe some questions I give when I start chapter 1 to see what they know before they get into the course. I can have a description here if I want to say it's open note, closed internet, whatever kind of description I want to have in there. It's a normal Moodle box. I can put videos in there. I can put pictures in there. I can have them answer questions about anything that's in the description, which I do in my short cycle assignments. I have a video, they watch the video, and then they take the quiz. Anyway, that is what's in the general section. I'm going to collapse each one as I go as I work through here. So general is just the name and the description. This little checkbox says that you want this full description to be on the course page. I don't ever do that, but you could if you wanted to have that show. So the next thing is timing. And timing is basically two things: when they have it available to them and how long they have it available to them. You don't have to set timing ever, but if you want it to show up on the calendar, you need to set timing. So for instance, I want this to show up on the calendar on a certain date, so I just hit enable, which enables the date and time to show up, and then I hit the calendar and say, you know what, we're going to take this quiz on April 12th. Now it's on every student's calendar in the course, as well as showing in upcoming events. I highly recommend using that. It also prevents students from coming in and starting it early. I always set the time to begin the beginning of the school day. However, you could do it the time of your first class if you wanted to. I just want to make sure that it's open when the day comes, that it's on. So that's the first part of timing. You could also make it close the quiz at a specific time, saying that, okay, it opens on the 12th. I'm going to do it both on my brown and my orange days, so it's going to close on the 13th. At 2:30 in the afternoon. We're all done at that point. I do not use the close one very often. I just have it open and then they take it when we do it in class and I leave it that way. But I could use the close option too if there was a set window I wanted to make. Time limit says, do I want it to be timed for my students? So maybe it's a big test. I want to make sure they get it done during class and we have a block schedule. So I say 75 minutes. And I'm going to hit show more because this says what happens when the time expires. And the default is that the attempts are submitted automatically. In other words, when that 75 minutes are up, it's submitted and graded and it's done. That's the default. There are some other options. One is that there's a grace period before they can submit it. And the other one is if it's not submitted, it's not counted. And it just goes away. Their attempt goes away. I'm not sure why anyone would use that setting. I don't obviously use that setting. I like to leave it on the default there, but I wanted to show you that when you see show more, there's usually another option, or there's always another option there for you to look at. So those are the things, and if you were just doing a little quiz, maybe you want to make sure they don't take more than 15 minutes. When you do a timed quiz in Moodle, up here in the top left corner, of their page, up here it will show a countdown timer the whole time, how much time they have left for that particular quiz. And like I said, when that time is up, it just submits it and they're done, and it's graded as soon as that happens. So that's the timing section of Moodle. And again, of these, I always use the open the quiz. I should usually use, especially for a test or a quiz that is summative in nature. I always want the kids to know ahead of time. Some of my short cycles, I don't use any of those as far as that goes. So that's timing. Grade is what the grade is that or where the category is that the grade is going. This is not how many points it's worth. That is set in when we put in the questions. This is just where it's going to go. So right now I have some categories in this class. We're going to say it's going to go in, let's say quarter 4 is where this grade is going to go. You notice this is not a red asterisk. It can just, you can leave it alone. We'll throw it in the course. I would never do that. Grade to pass is never required. And that is saying that if I have it set up as a restriction thing, for instance, let's say this is a formative quiz that's only going to be worth 10 points. You can't, it's not passed until you get 9 of the 10 points or 7 of the 10 points available on there. I don't need that ever. It has nothing to do with grades. It's just with activity completion. If you want to say you can't, this isn't completed until you've passed, then you have to say what a pass is. And the last thing under grade is how many times can they take it? And you can say up to 10 or unlimited. If it is a test, I leave it at 1. I can always change it to allow somebody to take it again, by the way. I can always incrementally increase that. Or if it's a short cycle that I want to allow students to take as many times as they want to, I could set it up to unlimited. If you set anything over 1, it then asks what grade counts. And you see that only shows up if I have it over 1. So if I say I'm going to allow you to take it twice, by default it says, well, you only get 1 grade for this activity. What grade counts? And it defaults to the highest grade, but there are other options. You can say the first attempt, last attempt, you can see it on there, average grade or highest grade. I personally, when I allow people to take something multiple times, say the last attempt. If you're going to take it again, you have to do better than you did the first time. You could say you can keep taking it and it averages them all out. Not sure how helpful that is for students and whether they'll do it if they know they could lower their grade just as easily as do it, as raise it. Some teachers just go with whatever the highest grade is you get. But that is one of the things that shows up as soon as you do multiple attempts. It has to know what way you're going to grade it on. So that is the grade section. Next one is the layout section. It's all shrunken by default because by default it says it wants, and you saw to see anything, I hit show more, because this is really the way we want them to be all the time, but you can override this. Every question gets a new page and navigation method is free. What that means is they can skip around and do the questions in any order they want to. If they want to mark a question and come back to it later, they could do that on free. However, you could say that's a new page for, you can see never, all questions are on one page. You can do one for every 2. I leave it at a question a page, and that way they never miss something at the bottom of the page. When you go and allow tons of them, now they have to keep scrolling down and down and down and down. I highly recommend not doing that. Navigation method to free or sequential is something you might want to do if you want them to do these questions in order, and you therefore then tell it not to randomize the question order. Then you would want to set it to sequential. And I'll give you an example of this. If you have reading that you want them to do, and then you want them to answer these 4 questions on that reading they just did, then you would want to do sequential, because there's no way, if you put a block of reading, because you can just put a block of text in your quiz, there's no way to make sure that the questions go with that one. You might want to use sequential. Not many people do that. Most people like to leave it free so the students can pop around, and they almost always leave it that it's not every question, or that it's every question, not a whole bunch on one page. So that's layout, and again, you don't normally see anything there. You have to hit the show more button to see that. So the next thing is question behavior. How does it work? This again is one that you don't normally have to set up at all. Question behavior deferred feedback means you don't see any kind of feedback on the question until you're done with the quiz. However, there are other options, and these I'm going to say are kind of advanced options in the Moodle quiz. Adaptive mode means that you can keep retaking the quiz, but every time you take the quiz and do this question, if you got it right, you keep getting 100%, but if you got it wrong, then you get incrementally less points on that question. So I leave it at deferred feedback, although you could try adaptive mode if that interests you, or you can have it do immediate feedback, so as soon as you answer the question, they actually know whether they got it right or wrong if you've got that in the feedback. I'm going to leave it at deferred. I always have mine at deferred. Review options are set by default of how and when students see points and what's right or wrong. So right now, during the attempt, they can only see the attempt. They can't see anything else. We don't want them to see the right answer while they're taking the quiz. Immediately after the attempt, they can see what points they got on it. And immediately after is defined as within 2 minutes, just so you know, of the submission. They see how many points they got, but they don't see what's right and what's wrong. And the reason for that is if they try to go back in the browser and re-answer questions, if they knew something was right or wrong, they can conceivably kind of trick the question. In fact, you could change it to you don't even see the points during that 2-minute time window. After that, we know that because Moodle updates every minute, it does a background update, that the score is now locked into the gradebook. So later, while the quiz is still open, means 2 minutes after the attempt is finished. Now they can see what they graded, what the points were for each question. They can see specific feedback on questions, and they can see overall feedback. They still don't see what is the right and wrong answers. And that's because if you make it so they can take it multiple times, we don't want them to know what the right answer was, because then they would never take it more than twice, hopefully. They'd see that this is the right answer, and I'd go take it one more time, and it's right. But it lets them see what they got wrong so that hopefully they look it up before they take the quiz again. Again, you could undo that so they don't even know. You could make it so all they see is what their grade is, their overall grade, and then they'll, oh, I got a 60%, but I don't know what's wrong. Not sure if that's the greatest way. That's up to you. And then after the quiz is closed, after everything's done, they can't have no more attempts left, or you've set the date. Now they can see what the right answer is, the wrong answer is. They can see everything after the quiz is closed. That's what the review option stands for. You can always see this. Click on the question mark there to see what it means. Immediately after the attempts, this is for the first 2 minutes after submit and finish is closed. That's to allow Moodle to lock their grade in the gradebook before they can see what was right or wrong. Later, while it's open, before the quiz close date, or all the attempts are completed, is really the same thing. Okay, that's review options. Appearance. Again, nothing really here for you. If you hit show more, then you've got some options. I'm not sure why you would do this, but when you're grading, do you want to see the student's image of who you're grading? That's what that's for. How many decimal places? We have it set to 2. How many decimal places in question grades? Same thing, it's 2 decimal places. And show blocks during quiz attempts, it's set to no. I don't know why anyone would need to change those. One of the new things that Moodle has is the ability to set a safe exam browser to keep them from being able to open anything else while they're in the Moodle quiz. I have never used this. If you say yes, then you use the existing blah, blah, blah. I haven't used it. I haven't used the safe exam browser, so I really shouldn't even be talking about it. Extra restrictions on attempts. Okay. This is an important one that I do use all the time. Okay, so first event, require network address. If you put 10.66 in there, and that's a 10 and a period of 66. That will make it so they can only take this quiz at National Trail local schools. That's all of our IP addresses start with 10.66. That makes it not about, you can't take it at home, you can't take it in the bus, you can't take it on your phone. You can only take it on the National Trail Network on our stuff. All of my summative stuff is set with a network address of 10.66. And we used to have this set up in everything by default, but when COVID happened and we went home, it became problematic. So we changed it to not have a network address. So 10.66 makes you have to take it here at school. Okay, require a password. I don't use this for short cycle assessments or quizzes. I always use this for summative assessments. And you might say, well, you just set the date, they can't take it a day early. Yes, but I've had students share the password, or not even share the password. I've had students take the test in the library during an aid period before they came to my class, and now I have no idea, did they help each other, did not help each other? So I just click on here and I put in a word. Say I put in the word Gogurt. I don't even know if I spelled that right. So I put that word in there, and now when they go to the quiz, they have to know the password, and I write the password on the board. So they have to be in my room. If I've got this 10.66 address, those two kind of go hand in hand. They have to get the password. I also sometimes hide the passwords in the videos that they have to watch, and make it so that if they didn't watch the video, they won't get the password, kind of helping require them to watch a flipped video if I've got something like that. So that's what require password is. And by the way, I can switch it every single block. So I can write up Gogurt on the board second block, and as soon as all my students are in the quiz, I can change it to whatever, bicycle. And then they can't give the password to the Orange Day kids because they just took it on Brown Day, because the password is changed. And I definitely, when I used to teach Orange and Brown of the same hardware class, I used to change it as soon as the school day was done to make sure nobody tried to take it from the next set of students. So that's what password and address is. The next one only is effective if you're having students take things more than once. Enforced delay between first and second attempts. And I will tell you, I always have a delay of 10 minutes between my first and second attempt on even my short cycle stuff, because I do the short cycle stuff in class and say, hey, you can take it as many times as you want later, but right now I want to see what you did on the first attempt. So it says, hey, between the first and second attempt, there's a delay of 10 minutes. After that, there's no delay unless I click this, and I can say, hey, you can only take it once a day if I wanted to. You can see that it has seconds, minutes, hours, days, or weeks. I don't know why you'd say 30 seconds. I don't know why you do that. Anyway, so you can make a delay. There's a different one between the first and second, and then the next delay is for everything else. So if you have it set to multiple attempts, you may want to make them pause between attempts some amount of time to say, hey, you have to look it up to find out what you got wrong. I don't want you to just keep going in and going in and going in. So you might want to set this one, hey, you can't take it that often. It's after the first one, you had 10 minutes to look it up. After that, it's 5 minutes after every one after that. So that's restrictions on attempts. That's where we find our password, our network address to keep it local. If you want to take it from home, you just delete that. Again, local 10.66 means only here at National Trail. And then delay between multiple attempts if you've allowed multiple attempts up top. Okay, overall feedback. That's where you could say something like, great job. If they got, here you can see it. This is the empty. It's got nothing. It goes from 0 to 100%. So I want to say if you got a 90%, that they all see the word great job when they finish the thing. And they're going to see it extra large. They're going to see it huge. But if they get between 0 and 90, they get nothing. Okay, I can add more. I can add more feedback. So I just added, what did I just do? Oh, there we go. I don't know why it went up top. So now if it's 80% or more, it says Good job. And they don't get this big a font, they get the extra large font. And now you can see it goes 0 to 80. There's nothing in between. You could make it say whatever you want to in there. You could have it be if they got between, if they failed, let's say if they got a failure, they got, I'm going to say 59% and below on here. Then I could have a guide that I put inside there that, hey, here's the guided notes. Please be sure to go through your guided notes before you do this quiz or test again. You can put documents in there, you can put videos in there, you can put anything in there for them to see inside the feedback. So that's the overall feedback. That's based on their overall grade. And then availability, that's just whether they can see it or not. Show on course page means it's visible. You can hide it. You can make it available, which means hidden, but you have to follow a link to get to this quiz. Like you do some reading and the quiz is the end of reading and it's not shown on the course page. I'm just going to leave it as show as course page. And then group mode, whether it wants to be separate groups when they go into this. And I always say separate groups, and that's so that I can look at the students by group on a particular quiz. I can say, hey, how'd Orange 1 do? If I don't have this group set to separate or visible, if I don't have grouping set up on this item, then I can't pull down an individual group and see how they did overall, which I definitely do. And then I don't have any grouping there. That's it for common module settings. That's the only one that I change. In fact, I should probably make the default changed on that. Okay, restrict access and activity completion is something that really is a whole different bag of worms. You can restrict the access based on other things. I am not going to go into restrictions and activity completion. That is a whole another set of instructions. And restrict access and activity completion I use all the time on every single thing in my course, but it's an overall course thing that applies not to just Moodle quizzes, but to everything in Moodle. So when I'm done with all those settings and I hit save and display, grade feedback boundary between 0 and 100, you entered, and then what? Oh, I have to say percent. Really? And 59%. I'm going to hit save and display again, see if I go in there, and it says you put in a feedback boundary without giving any gaps. Oh, I added this, and you know what? I'm just going to delete this. Anyway, let's say. Okay, so let's see if okay, so I made my first quiz. I've created the quiz, and the quiz is completely empty. And that's what happens when we create a quiz. I'm done with quiz creation. If I go back here to chapter 1 of my course, I now see this preview quiz right here, but it's got no questions inside it. That's the subject of the next video.